Welcome to the show, everybody. I know I'm a little early, but that's okay. I have a wonderful guest with me today. This is Sharon Palmer. Hello, welcome, Sharon, to the show. How's
Hi,
it
it's
going?
great to be here.
Yes, it's definitely a pleasure. I know personally, I am very excited to have you because I myself am vegan. I've been uh, coined soy Jesus by a lot of the internet. We'll just say that. I didn't call myself that. It just, I guess, because of my looks and the fact that I'm vegan, the two things came together, and that's what it is now. So,
Uh,
and that's interesting. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you, and how did you become doing what you're doing now?
yes, well, I'm a registered dietitian. I've been a dietitian for almost 3 decades now, and I studied nutrition at Loma Linda University. I don't know if you've heard of that, but that's one of the blue zones in America where their diet has been linked with long life. And I was basically studied nutrition in a plant-based community, a plant-based college. The hospital was plant-based, so that was an interesting experience to study nutrition. And then I got my master's in sustainable food systems just a year ago. So I'm really passionate about plant-based nutrition and sustainability. And there are definitely some intersections there. I live in Ojai, California, which is this really beautiful community. I'm surrounded by small organic farms. So it's kind of, just really reinforcing this connection that I have to good food, local food, healthful food that's plant-based.
That's really amazing. I mean, and really, when you think about food, I mean, everybody eats.
Yeah.
It's the key to life. Like, we need to eat. Seriously, civilizations have been built and revolve around food. The history of trade was because of food. The whole spice trade. Back in the day, and I'm sure for hundreds of years before that, thousands maybe. Just it's all about eating. Eating right. So that's awesome. So you're in a. It's probably really easy to get some good organic, food around you with all those organic farms. That's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. In California, we have a Mediterranean climate. So we have availability of all of these amazing foods. So I'm really lucky to be living here where we just have this amazing variety of plant-based foods.
Nice. And I like that you have a focus in sustainability. That's really great because I do feel like a lot of moving forward in this life, we have to take that into consideration because if we have so many humans on this planet now, it's tripled in I think 80 years, tripled. And that's
Yeah.
crazy. So we really have to cater and try to figure out how to produce food and in a
Mhm.
sustainable way, or because the way we're going about it right now is definitely not good. I mean, I want to stay more on the nutrition side of it because I feel like we're at a crossroads right now. We can go it and talk about many different things from that little blip there, but let's really dig into nutrition. So let's start. What are the nutrients the human body really requires?
Yeah,
What's the basics?
that's a really good question to start it out with because a lot of us didn't really learn these things in school, about basic nutrition and even how to eat healthfully. We used to learn these things in school and it's been kind of cut out of the curriculum.
Hmm.
So a lot of us really don't really even have the basic idea of how to eat healthfully. And yet, diet along with healthy lifestyle could prevent 85% of chronic diseases, 85%. So that's how
Wow.
powerful diet and lifestyle is.
I believe
We
it.
can live longer, we can reduce our risks of things like heart disease, cancer, diabetes, obesity, and the list goes on. Alzheimer's, neurodegenerative diseases. The list just goes on and on about how diet is impactful in these conditions. So you could literally live a longer, more vibrant, even depression is linked with diet now.
Wow.
So there's so many reasons why. And really, there's our beginning understanding of nutrition really came from deficiencies where scientists would study, like, for example, they found out the vitamin C, when you didn't get enough vitamin C, you developed scurvy, and so these are
Mm.
kinds of that's how we started learning about nutrition. And so my kind of understanding and my education in nutrition really came from that environment. But now we really understand the prevention side of nutrition, that an overall healthy diet can help us live longer and live healthier lives. And so that has really shifted in the last couple of decades, or even more in the last decade.
Yeah.
The way we understand this. But our foods contain all these different nutrients. We have our macronutrients like fats and proteins and carbohydrates that we have to have for normal body function. And then we have the micronutrients, things like vitamins and minerals that we have to have. We know we need these to have healthy, normal functioning of our bodies. So
Okay.
foods contain these ingredients, but then they also contain some unhealthy ingredients. And that's mainly as a result of our modern food system, because we've been processing foods. So that's
Yeah.
why, sugars are in balance. When you eat a fresh strawberry, those sugars in the fruit are in balance with all the nutrients. But then when you refine something and for example, beets, and turn it into sugar, now it's just a completely isolated added sugar. And now we know that those ingredients aren't so good for us. So now we have these ingredients that aren't so healthy that are coming from our food supply.
Wow. So, wow, that's so yeah, it really is the imbalance that society has made, and just, shelf life. They just want it to last longer, so when they make a product, we can, you don't have to, it doesn't mold right away. I mean, you're surrounded by small farms.
Yeah.
Is that really the answer? I've been saying for a while, like, why do people have grass? Why don't we just make gardens? And you can all of your neighbors, like, you can make the tomatoes, your neighbor can make the cucumbers, the person across the street can grow corn. I don't know. I'm just coming up with random stuff, but I guess it really does boil down to, can we get all those nutrients that we need from growing our own food? Because not everyone can even have livestock. Obviously I'm vegan, but there's
Mhm.
a lot of people out there that they hear the word vegan and they instantly get, for lack of better words, triggered. They're like, it's a defense mechanism. Like, whoa, like, you're trying to make me eat grass, and it's like, no, that's not what I'm trying to do. Like, if we live in this world right now where we know what we need to eat to function as a human being, and we can get all of these nutrients from plants and vegetables and fruits, then why do we need to, make it more of an imbalance? Because that's really what it is. It's an imbalance. Our whole system has been processed.
Right.
So tell us about that. How do we, like? Well, you kind of shed a little bit of light on what we need. We need fats, protein, carbohydrates, and then of course, I think you said macro, like vitamins, vitamin B12. I know it
Mhm.
is a must. Different amino acids, right?
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah. So we need all of these nutrients in our foods. And I really love that you touched on the fact that, you know, if we just kind of ate real food, we would be getting more of these nutrients. And
Right.
indeed, when you look around diet patterns around the world, and what we call these indigenous diets or traditional diets, where you can
Yeah.
still find diets, and I have seen these firsthand in different food studies that I've done, where people are literally eating the same way they have for hundreds of years, and their diets are completely unprocessed. There's nothing coming in a can or a package. It's all whole foods.
Yep.
And typically these places are eating very plant-based diets. And it's not like they're vegan. It's just that this is the way they've been eating for centuries.
Yeah. Yeah.
And plant foods were always the easy things to grow. I mean, they didn't, you couldn't, hunting was dangerous and it was more expensive to keep animals, but you could
True.
always plant a crop. You could save the seeds and plant it year after year.
Yep.
And you could trade things with your neighbors, and store things, can, ferment,
Right.
dry. So these were the foods and that were part of these diets in the Americas as well. And when we see these particular cultures, they have very low rates of diseases, so very low rates of obesity.
That
So, yeah,
see it.
getting back, so it's like, how do we get back
Yeah.
to that style of eating? And we can even do that in modern societies. There's no reason why we can't be eating more whole foods, you know, uh, even if you're shopping at the supermarket. So I like to say, try to choose foods that remind you of Mother earth or mother nature that grow
Yeah.
close to the soil, where you can actually see, like when you pick up an apple, there's a little stem, and you could see that the stem was attached to a tree. Like you can
Right.
see how it grew. You know, if you pick up a package of barley, those are actually the kernels, the seeds on the barley plant, which is like a grass. So you can
Okay.
see that that grew on a plant. Or when you pick strawberries, or you can see the little leaf. But once you start getting into highly processed food, you can't even see a single food in there anymore. It's all been highly processed. So if you see,
Yeah.
like a nutrition bar or a chip, it doesn't even look like anything found in Mother Nature, right?
So
So
when
yeah.
you got people these aren't super chats, but a lot of people in the comments, I see them right now. They're
Mhm.
saying 100% of human history, no, not a single vegan culture.
Yeah.
I tried being vegan once, it nearly killed me. All
Mm.
these, you know, and I've dealt with this a lot. Now I've been vegan for
Yeah.
4 years, and I'm
Mm.
healthy. I'm not overweight. I
Mhm.
skate pretty hardcore when I go skate. I'm a physical person. Um, I feel rather healthy. What do you say to these people that are instantly triggered and are very clearly upset about even having a conversation about eating
Yeah.
plant-based diet?
Yeah, this is a really, interesting conversation to have. First of all, veganism, there isn't you don't see that as part of indigenous traditional diets, but you do see plant-based eating for sure. And there is a history of vegetarianism. I actually wrote an article. You could Google Sharon Palmer history of vegetarianism, and you'll see, where I actually did some research. And I mean, way back to Leonardo da Vinci and Einstein. I mean, there were numerous figures, even back to ancient cultures, that for moral and ethical reasons they didn't believe in eating animals. So we do have a historic precedent for plant-based diets. But what I think is interesting is that there were so many traditional diets that were primarily plant-based too, and we can see this in cultures all over the world. So, oh, you found my article, yeah.
Yeah, just pop that
So,
up real quick just to show
yeah,
everyone.
I just think it's interesting, just as a historical perspective, to see that we do have these eating styles, and a lot of it was surrounded by moral concerns, and even health concerns started coming up. People started believing, there are many people throughout history that believed that it wasn't healthy to eat meat. So we do have that. You know,
Yeah.
Now we really do have a history of that, and over the last 3 decades, we really have gathered together quite a bit of research on the health benefits of vegan and vegetarian diets. So,
Yeah, and you even mentioned something earlier about how we found out what causes diseases, because I'm everyone always is like, "What's the medicine that we need for this?" And it's like, "Okay, that's good and all, but what's causing the diseases, right?" And have
yeah,
you heard of the China study?
yes,
Okay,
hmm,
so for those who don't know, I'm just going off my memory. It's been a while since I've delved into it. China did a crazy study that had, I think, like a billion people, maybe not, hundreds of millions of different Chinese citizens um, studied their diets in different locations, and they had different types of food that was the normal base food. And they realized that there was correlation to the different foods to the different types of cancers that appeared in those different societies. And it's the biggest study ever done on humans for eating meat, and there's a direct correlation with eating meat and the cancers that arose. Did
hmm,
I sum that up fairly
yeah,
decently?
yeah. You did, and that is one very publicized study by Dr. T. Colin Campbell, who wrote a best-selling book about it. And there have been many, many, many studies on plant-based diets since
Yeah.
then, even in the last, as I said, in the last 3 decades, and even more recently, study after study after study. That I like to point to the Adventist health studies, where I went to school at Loma Linda University. They're probably some of the most well-known studies on plant-based diets. And in these studies, they looked at 5 eating patterns, And also Epic Oxford studies in UK have similar studies. And now we have studies in Taiwan and India, all very remarkably similar, but basically comparing 5 diet patterns: regular diet, a semi-vegetarian diet, pescatarian diet, a lacto-ovo, and a vegan diet. 5 diet patterns. And
Okay.
almost for every parameter, the more plant-based, the better the benefit. So almost every single thing they looked at. Overall, you saw this trend. So if you went from a carnivore to a semi-vegetarian, a benefit. If you went to, pescatarian, a benefit. If you went to lacto-ovo, a benefit. So, and the thing that was so interesting with these studies is they also studied what people eat. And vegans, compared to carnivores, they're eating so many more vegetables. Of course they are, right? Of course they
Right.
should be. But when you see it on a graph and you see like how much more vegetables vegans are eating than carnivores, because they're filling up more on these things,
Yeah.
it's no wonder that they're healthier. I mean, they're eating more whole grains, they're eating more avocados, they're eating more nuts, they're
Hmm.
eating all these things that we know are healthy. So of course they should be healthier. So it really makes sense, but I also like to show that, I always like people to get more plant-based. So, if you're a carnivore and you're like thinking, like start out semi-vegetarian or flexitarian, maybe go pescatarian and start getting on that track of eating more plant-based.
Yeah. What about a lot of people talk about how um, vegetable oils are the worst and like
Mm,
hydrogenated oils, and I mean veganism, that's not like the fake meats and all that stuff out there, there that's not obviously I'm just talking to the crowd. I actually have your picture here, that's why I'm looking off to the side. But just to say to everybody, many vegans, they don't eat that stuff. We just eat a bunch of vegetables, and a lot of, when you say plant-based, a lot of people instantly think of the fake meat stuff because that's what, like, meat is such a normal in their diet.
mhm,
And I see
mhm,
a lot of comments right now about people saying, like, oh, those fake meats are really bad for you. The oils that they pump into those things to make them are the worst. And I actually like a lot of mushroom based fake meats. Those
mhm.
That's really what I prefer. I don't know if you've heard of the company Corn,
Yeah, I
but
have.
I really
I
like
like
them.
their products. Yeah, I have been asked this question so many times about the fake meats, and
Yeah,
especially that what I call the new generation. I don't want to like call out any brand names being. I don't want to pick on anybody, but this newer generation of
yeah,
plant-based products that are meant to like resemble meat. They taste like
right.
meat. They look like meat.
They really do.
Yes. So the nutritionals on those are very similar to meat because they're
Oh,
trying
okay.
to reproduce meat. They have similar saturated fat, similar calories, similar protein. They do have more fiber because they're made from plants.
Right.
But regardless of just sheer nutrients, there are many studies that have found red meat in particular to have harmful health impacts. Like high intakes of red meat have been linked with many, many health problems. So
Yeah.
now we know there's something in the meat besides just like fat. I mean, saturated fat is one main area, but there are also other things in the meat. One of the theories is too much iron. Now we know that too much iron can actually be a health problem. So red meat is very high in heme iron. So
Mm.
there's research on that. There's research on TMAO, which is another compound. So it could be something else. And then there's another theory that when you're cooking meat, you produce certain chemicals in the actual cooking of meat. So that could be the reason why
Mm.
there's a high risk, because there are there are so many studies showing health risk with red meat.
Yeah.
So no matter what, if you're cutting back red meat and eating these plant-based products, you are at least eliminating red meat from your diet. And I know we're going to talk about sustainability later. These are much more sustainable products. They've done studies and
True.
you can really cut your environmental footprint. But the health benefits come from eating lentils, beans, farro, like avocados.
Yeah.
That's where the health benefits come from. So I always like to tell people, sure, these are fine every once in a while, but these should be like when you're a treat or having a barbecue for a holiday. It
Yeah.
shouldn't be what you're eating day in and day out, you know?
Well, I mean, you look back 150 years ago, what was the average diet among Americans? It wasn't meat every day. It wasn't like
Yeah.
what you just said, it was really Thanksgiving. They would save up and go get a turkey, and then that would be it. But most of the time it was, potatoes and cabbage and, stuff that they would be able to grow, canned stuff and stuff you would trade with their neighbors and all that. So, it's the society that we live in now, but then of course it's processed.
Mm,
Um, a lot of these studies, I've always thought about it too. It's hard to really look at it that it's unbiased in the sense that we don't know if the people who were just eating like a plant-based diet versus someone who was eating like really heavy meat
mhm.
diet, i- if they were healthy outside of just what they eat. Because if you eat well but you still like, you can be vegan and eat a lot of sugar and eat a lot of
Right.
like, so drink sodas all day and not work out ever,
Mm,
so it's like it doesn't take into account the rest of the the human's life, what they do outside of what they eat. So I always found that really interesting. So what
yeah,
were you gonna say?
I absolutely agree with what you're saying, and they try to control for this in really good studies, try to control these factors, like how healthy they were. But you're right, a lot of these big studies that looked at diet patterns, like whether you're a vegan or a carnivore, they didn't look at, like, how much sugar you ate. They just literally, were you vegan or were you carnivore, you know?
Yeah, right.
They didn't look to see, all these, but there was a new study done by Harvard. It was like 2 years ago, where they actually now are looking at people within a vegan diet. They've now categorized a healthy vegan diet versus a processed vegan diet. So
Ah,
if you're eating sugar and refined foods, or eating, the beans, the lentils, the vegetables, whole grains, and they found a much better result for health benefits for the healthy vegan diet. In
yeah.
fact, the unhealthy vegan diet did more poorly than a traditional, like, non-vegetarian diet. So basically, their conclusion was if you ate an unhealthy, highly processed vegan diet, you were less healthy than the average person.
Okay.
So it just goes to show you that, I mean, I always say Coke, I mean, I shouldn't say brand names, but soda is vegan,
Too late,
like
you said it.
I know. Chips are vegan, like there's so much vegan junk
Yeah.
food. Sugar's vegan, like, so you
Junk
could
food is
just
junk food. Fast food is fast food.
exactly. And there are a lot of people that think vegan foods have a health halo. So they think, oh, it's healthy, it's vegan. It's like, no, it can be just as unhealthy, as a non-vegan version. So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
really the quality.
right. I mean, and really, so what I've just heard, it's not that it's necessarily unhealthy to not be vegan, but you have to be aware of the health benefits of not, of just eating a lot more vegetables. Really, that's what it is, It's like
Yeah.
you got to understand that we don't sure it wasn't, I saw someone chatted or said something about how in the history of humans we've never just been vegan. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
sure, but we live in a different society now. We have uh,
Yes. We
where
live
there's
in a
billions
different
of it.
society. And one of the
Yes.
things I really believe personally is that we need to evolve with our environment.
Yeah.
And, we've always, our food system has always evolved with our environment. And now we actually can eat a healthy vegan diet. Maybe, 50 years ago, before we could have a B12 supplement
Right.
easily available, maybe it wasn't such as good of an idea. Today, I mean, the science on sustainability is just overwhelming, what
Hmm.
meat production can do. And vegans have the lowest environmental footprint, carbon footprint, water footprint, land footprint. So it's almost like, of course we can learn from history, but we also need to look at where we're at right now with carbon,
That's
footprint,
true.
climate change at a tipping point.
Yeah. Well,
So
my
it's,
big thing is space, honestly. Like I
yeah.
love all things space, moving out into space. And you think about living on Mars. They grew wheat on the space station, so they were able to grow plants. And you
Mm.
think about if they're going to go to Mars, they're going to have to. There's water on Mars, so they're going to be able to harvest water on Mars and turn that into drinking water, turn that into oxygen, turn that into
Mm.
fuel. But they're not. There's not going to be enough for them to raise cattle.
Yeah.
It's not. It's going to be astronauts that live on Mars. They're going to be vegan.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
More
They're
efficient.
gonna. It is right. It's more efficient and it's healthy. I
Yes.
think that is. I think that is definitely the future of it. Of
Yeah.
space travel. But let's get back to. You started talking about sustainability. Let's get into those numbers because that's also a big reason. Now I went vegan because of health reasons. I learned
Mhm.
about what it does to your heart. The valves and all the negative stuff that I've read about dairy mostly. Honestly, I would eat meat again over having dairy in my life because I've learned about just dairy is not good for you. But
Mhm.
but sustainability, like I really do want to talk about that. Let's I'm sure you have a nice baseline of information to start it off. Um, what is it?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's more sustainable. You started talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, the research is very consistent on this. It's just not even an argument. I mean, the
Hmm.
plant-based diets are more sustainable. The more plant-based diet, the more sustainable. And vegan diet, over and over in the studies, comes out to have the lowest footprint because animal agriculture is the most intensive. Now,
Yep.
I mean, especially in our modern society where, we have large agricultural
Operations.
systems.
Hmm.
So we grow food to feed animals over their lifetime. So if you think how long it takes, for an animal to live, and you're growing food to feed it over an extended period of time, and then you quite, just to look at it very clinically, then you harvest that animal and eat it. So how
Yeah.
much food went into it over its lifetime, and then water and
Right.
space and all the manure it produces and the methane it produces, and then you harvest it and eat it. It's
Yeah.
much more efficient to just grow the crop and eat it. And that's really where it's all at, is this efficiency. And then on top of that, the methane, because ruminants like cows and sheep produce, very potent greenhouse gases. And that's
Yeah.
a big factor in their carbon footprint. So beef and sheep, red meat, ruminants have the highest footprint, but we mostly eat beef here. We don't eat a lot of sheep or lamb. So
Right.
that's really the most impactful.
And pigs, right? I guess too, as
Pigs
well.
have a much lower, they're monogastric, so they don't produce the amount of methane that
Oh,
ruminants do. So actually
okay.
pigs have I mean, it's still much, much higher than plant foods are
Right.
always lower, like significantly lower. But then when you look at the variety of animal foods, red meat, ruminants have the highest by far. And then pigs and poultry have a lower, but still much higher than plant foods, because we still grow plants to feed those animals,
Right.
but they don't produce the potent greenhouse gases that the ruminants do.
Yeah,
But
I
it's
guess people.
much more efficient to just eat the plants rather than grow the
Exactly.
plants and
That's
feed
what I
them.
was gonna say. I mean, people don't really take into credit that you're not just not eating, a steak from this cow. You're not using this entire field to make. Well, they're feeding them corn too, and like
Grains and
food
yeah,
that isn't normal for them to eat.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I don't know. So they're all that. I see a lot of people are upset with me. It's okay. Look, I'm not trying, this is the thing. I'm not trying to convince anyone to be vegan. I'm just trying to talk about what it is, and it's fine. Like people can be upset with me, and that's not what I'm not here to cater to anyone. I'm here to talk about things that interest me, that people are also interested in finding out more about. And this is how I've always said it. I'm not trying to convince anyone to be like me or to do what I'm doing. I want to bring people on here so I can be more knowledgeable about moving forward in life. I want to ask these, and the next is I'm curious about insects.
Mhm.
What do you know about the whole insect eating world? What's up with that?
Yeah, and I really appreciate what you said because what it's a very emotional response that sometimes people have about
Yeah,
veganism.
I
And
see
it's
it.
yeah, and it's really, there are three main motivators through surveys why people become vegan. The number one is health reasons.
Yep.
Number two is environment, and number three is animal welfare. I mean, according to studies, but they all three are, important motivators.
Yeah.
And so those are all like, they're all, positive things that, we want to change in our communities. So, it's a positive thing. And I think, being positive within the plant-based movement is really important because there are a lot of people that are negative, and I think that kind of can make people have a different viewpoint of it. It seems like
Yeah.
you're super positive, but some
I
people,
always will choose positivity over negativity,
yeah,
always, and people may disagree with me.
yeah,
I've been called naive, and that's okay.
mm,
You're always until you further your knowledge about something. That's just the
yeah,
way it is. Everyone's ignorant until they understand more about something. And that's my
mm,
goal. I want to understand everything. You know, I
yeah,
am vegan for a personal choice.
mm,
I'm not trying to convince anyone out there to be vegan. But I'll tell you
yeah,
what, I would like everyone to be healthy, and as we've learned, you don't have to be vegan to be healthy. That's not what we're saying at all. We are just discussing um, sustainability on this planet, which I think
mm,
is an important issue that we need to talk about. Because I don't think the way that we're doing things right now is good. I think that we're overproducing, and that goes across the board, not just food, clothing, computers. Like literally, we're overproducing everything. And, a lot of people care about the environment, but they're typing on their computers. They're buying a new phone every year because it's built over on the other side of the planet, but they love to complain about how America's not, you know, holding true to whatever. It's like, okay, you're realizing how um, hypocritical you're sounding, right? I'm not talking to you, obviously. I'm talking to those people because that is existing. Look, I ate meat for most of my life, and honestly, if the society that we live in crumbled away, I would probably hunt. I would probably fish actually, more early, but I wouldn't want dairy because I would want to survive still. We don't need to survive in that sense anymore. We're not living in the woods.
mm,
We live in this amazing society that can produce food for us all, so I
right,
don't have to kill an animal and I have an animal die for me, and every time I did eat meat, I thanked the animal. That's what they used to do. They would
mm,
thank animal, like the Native Americans would thank something for the buffalo. They cherished the buffalo. They didn't
right,
totally harvest them to extinction, which
mhm,
has almost all but happened now.
yeah,
So yeah, anyway, I just had to rant because there's a lot of anger right now that I'm seeing in the chat, which doesn't bother me.
yeah,
I'm going to continue doing what I do and being me. So that's all right. Listen, let's move forward.
okay,
What were we talking about? Sustainability. Let's talk about sugar actually, because we kind of talked about sustainability a little bit. It is more sustainable. It's not, we can't continue doing what we're doing. So obviously we need to read. Oh, insects, right?
oh yes.
Let me pick your brain about the whole insect eating movement. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, it's a sustainable source of protein. I think most vegans don't consider that a vegan source of protein, but
Right.
that's fine. It is a sustainable source of protein because it doesn't take a lot of inputs to get protein from insects. And these were part of traditional diets forever. Americans aren't really used to that. It hasn't really caught on,
Yeah.
but it's being talked about more and more as a future protein source. So I do think we will see more of that. Another future protein source has been algae, and that is
Oh
very
yeah.
sustainable. And you could grow it in tanks, and it would be, a clean source of protein. That's been talked about a lot too. So there are some of these
Interesting.
choices. And one of the things, when we're talking about sustainability and plant based, a lot of the major reports that have come out recently, like the IPCC report, the
Hmm.
WWF report, Eat Lancet, they're calling for just like, even if people could cut their meat intake by half, what that would do. So, it's like, even if, people don't want to be vegan, of course, I'm not saying everybody has to be vegan, but I do think we could just make a serious cutback. And one of
Yeah.
the things we could do is eat more what I call pulses, which are things like beans and lentils and dried peas, because that is the most sustainable source of protein. It's drought tolerant. It doesn't take a lot of land. It doesn't take a lot of inputs. It's
Yeah.
it actually creates nitrogen in the soil, so it's like a natural fertilizer. And these have been parts of human diets for since the beginning of time.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I think about space. Obviously, I mentioned it earlier about how I like to think about the future, and insects are an interesting thing because I don't know if you would want a bunch of insects crawling around on a spaceship, or but if you could have a farm of some sort that would work. I mean, maybe that would work.
yeah,
It is really interesting. Well, let's get into sugar. Let's because you
okay,
don't have to be vegan or not to know that sugar is definitely an issue in our
mm,
culture. I mean,
yeah,
everything has sugar in it. It is just
yeah,
there's a trigger in your brain, right? It's like a six. You've gotten more sugar. Like, yay, get
yeah,
some more sugar, and then you need more sugar and more sugar, right? I mean,
right.
this is let me just pop this up real quick. This is an article that you wrote. This is the real scoop on sugar.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
I'm just going to read the first little part. It says, according to the 1964 Walt Disney musical Mary Poppins, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. But while sugar may help medicine go down, you don't hear anyone singing those praises anymore. Instead, many Americans and those in healthcare community claim sugar is toxic. Sugar causes obesity. Sugar makes you fat. So I mean, a lot of bold statements, but it's
Yeah.
rather true, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is something we know now that, the major health organizations like the American Medical Association, the
Yeah.
American Heart Association, they're coming out and saying we have to reduce sugar. I mean, we're eating way too much, and there's a lot of reasons that's bad. But now the recommendation is to not have any more than 10% of your calories coming from sugar. So it just like, for example, the average person needs about 2,000 calories. So that would be 200 calories of your diet, no more than that,
Wow.
from sugar. So, you're right. Sugar is in everything. I mean, it's in, like pasta sauce, it's in packaged, even like savory foods, it's in hiding, and yogurt. Yogurt's like our like ice cream now. Nutrition
Yeah.
bars are like candy bars, So people don't realize that it's in all these things. And now it can increase your risk of heart disease, and metabolic conditions like diabetes. So we have to really cut it down. And in fact, interestingly, the latest sustainability reports are calling for reduced sugar because it's not a sustainable food. You have to grow things like beets and then turn it into sugar in a factory and then transport it all over the world to go in as an ingredient. It is not sustainable. Plus, the opposite of sustainability is something that would hurt humans. Like, you eat it and it hurts humans. That's not sustainable. Why should we
Right.
be using all of our water and land to produce something that hurts us?
Yeah. Well, it keeps us taking medicine. It keeps us sick, and I feel like I mean again, this is another conversation, but I've seen enough documentaries. Like some people will probably be like, "Oh, they're all propaganda pieces." I've even heard that like veganism is a propaganda piece for globalism. Like what, what? Like I just want to be healthy, and I've learned about all these things about being healthy. And as we said, you don't have to be vegan to be healthy. I'm not saying that you need to be vegan, everybody. All right. I'm not trying to force anything on you. I'm just trying to learn more about this myself. And
Yeah,
by the off chance someone out there is curious about this information, they can find out for themselves as well.
right.
Um, yeah, I just want to be I want to be healthy for me.
Yeah.
Well, and then then I would talk about the whole and let's stay on sugar. Let's stay on sugar
Okay.
because It really does seem like it's in everything, you know? So, do we even need sugar? I mean, we
No.
like so you talked about the keto diet, something about, I don't remember. I didn't read the article because I was just, there's a lot of, different things that you've written, but you did talk about the keto diet, and so for those who don't know, the keto diet is where you basically cut sugar out, right?
Yeah, and
And
carbohydrates.
enter ketosis. Go ahead.
Oh, and most of the carbohydrates too. Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
are a different form of sugar, right? In a
Yeah,
sense?
it's a macronutrient, and it's the source of energy that the human body prefers getting our energy source, like our fuel, from carbohydrates. It can also use fat. It could break down protein, but our preferred source of energy is carbohydrates.
Okay.
Uh, so the keto diet really reduces carbohydrates, and the fat is the huge amount of nutrients in the diet. I'm not a big fan of the keto diet at all, but
No. Why
um,
not? Why is that?
because it's really, number one, it's there's not enough research to suggest that that would be a diet for optimal health for your whole lifespan.
Okay.
There are some little particular, maybe some niche kind of conditions that it might have benefits for, but basically you have to eliminate a lot of fruits, starchy vegetables, whole grains, beans, all the things that we know are good for you. You have to take them off the diet. So,
Yeah.
and then just eating high fat, and a lot of times people are literally just kind of eating this processed stuff just to achieve ketosis. And
Yeah.
it's not
And
a,
processed.
when
Yeah,
I
it's
say
not good.
a diet should be sustainable, and what I mean by sustainable is something, a lifestyle that you can live on and feel healthy and happy and content. I mean, if you're on a keto diet, how can you have a Thanksgiving dinner or go see a friend? Like, you're eating like these artificial foods a lot of times. So,
Yeah.
it's really hard to eat any kind of a balanced diet. It's anytime you're on a diet that you can't wait to go off, then it's not sustainable. It should be a
Right.
way of living and eating. And back to the sugar just a little bit. I am not a purist. I don't think you have to completely never have a drop of sugar, but this 10% rule, like just a little bit of sugar, and then have it in something you really enjoy. Like if you want to make homemade chocolate chip cookies, on the weekend, let it be something that you really enjoy, but it's this constant trickle in everything we eat. And then beverages like sodas can have so much sugar.
Yeah.
So,
It's
that's
insane.
where it's just flooding in our bodies. So it's not that you can never, ever, ever have any of it, but it should be like a treat. It shouldn't be just like all the time,
Yeah.
taking away from all the healthy things we could be eating.
Especially sodas. I mean, my
Yeah.
goodness. So Snapple, like I last time I had one of those, I just took one because I drink water now. Coffee and water and whiskey. Those are the three things that I like to drink. Which
That's
of course
good.
alcohol has sugar in it, right? I mean,
Well,
I guess
it's a different form. It depends on which form of alcohol you're consuming. Like, but yeah, it is interesting. Beverages are another category that's probably, people overlook beverages, but
mm,
what happens in our bodies is that when we chew food, it makes us feel full, and it's part of this whole your digestion starts in the mouth when you're chewing food. And humans, evolved chewing like really chewy foods, because nothing was processed, right? Like, can
right.
you
Yeah.
imagine how long it took to eat food in our early ancestors? Because nothing, it was just unprocessed foods, right?
Right.
So we know when we chew food, we start, slowly digesting, and then we start feeling full. Like, have you noticed when you eat like a pear, it could take you forever to eat a whole pear, and it's like you're
Been a
full, but
while.
that was only 90 calories because there's so much chewing.
It's
So,
interesting. Yeah. Good
with
trick. Good.
beverages, what happens is there's studies to show you could have the same calories in a beverage, and you just drink it down, and you don't feel full at all. If you eat
Hmm.
that same calories in a food that requires chewing, you're really full. So that just goes right back. Like, you could have 150 calories in a soda and not feel slightly full at all. But
Yeah.
150 calories of a healthy food, you're like feeling full and satisfied, and, as a snack or something. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting how the beverages kind of trick our bodies.
Yeah. And you said 10% of your daily intake for sugar.
Yeah.
you're getting that and some with just one
Oh,
can
yeah.
of soda, just one can of
Exactly.
soda. Some people drink a
Exactly.
2 liter, a day. It's pretty crazy actually to think about. Um,
Yeah,
man,
it's crazy. You're
yeah, it
absolutely
really is. Oh, well, sugar is a thing, isn't it?
right. Well, it's interesting to think that humans never knew anything sweet other than fruit and then honey. But if you think how hard it was to get honey, if our early ancestors,
That's
like
true.
it was hard to get honey, right? You had to fight off bees. So the only thing we ever knew was like fruit in the summer, like berries. And then we isolated the substance, and now it's just so intense that it's taking us, humans in our evolution to really understand it, and
Yeah,
how we've just become so used to it. And
true.
I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but you can actually train your taste buds to prefer less sugar. So if
Hmm.
you are trying to get off sugar, like maybe you'll have like you'll start off with plain yogurt. I like plant-based yogurt, and just put a little bit of added sugar or honey, or well, agave or maple syrup is what I use. But um, you can train yourself to like less and less sugar and be satisfied. So if you really train your taste buds to prefer less sugar, and then you drink a soda, it will seem shockingly sweet.
Yeah.
So you can train your taste buds to like less sugar.
No joke. I'm pretty sure that already happened to me. I've never really been a sweets kind of person, like rich cakes and stuff like that never interested me. I was very not like my favorite thing was always fruit leather, that kind of stuff. Like that is my jam.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much like I don't really do sweets any now. I really do prefer savory everything. Sometimes like
Mm,
a maple syrup, but it's still more of a that's a natural kind of a flavor, maple syrup,
mhm.
I don't know, there's something like I can't do the fake syrup, the hydrogenated oils basically. It's
Yeah,
I
I
just can't do
prefer
it anymore.
syrup. I go to maple syrup or agave. If I'm baking, a lot of my recipes, if I have to have sugar, and these are still sugar to the body, but they're less refined. I mean, they're like maple syrup is an old practice in the Americas where they tapped trees, and of course it's cooked down, but
Yeah.
it's not as refined as white sugar, and it does have some antioxidants left in there. So I mean, it's
So
still sugar, but I would prefer using that myself too, just a small amount.
right.
Hmm.
Well, that's great. So tell us about your book that you just wrote. I could pop up your website here. We got the plant powered diet,
Yeah.
written by you, and then I think you have another one down here. The
Yes.
plant powered for life. Tell us
Yeah.
about your book. What are they about?
So my first book is the plant powered diet, and that's kind of like, I call it kind of like a guide to plant based eating. And again, my philosophy is that anybody can eat a plant based diet. I really believe that everybody could and should eat a plant based diet, meaning that there's a spectrum. Like even if you just cut back or do meatless Monday or eat more flexitarian, I think we can all do that, and we could get health benefits and environmental benefits. So I
Yeah.
really talk about how to do that, and even down to like what foods should you eat, how much protein, where do you get your protein, and how many servings do you need, and where do you get all these nutrients. So I really break it down into all very specifics. And then I do have some recipes too. And then my second book is Plant Powered for Life, and that is really just an easy, like it's basically 52 tips, so you could take one per week to eat a more plant-based diet. And they're easy tips on one page where you could do them all at once, or you could do them over a period of time, and then recipes that help you kind of learn these behaviors of how to eat more plant-based. So really just one tip at a time, and then you could really start eating more of a plant-based diet.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that first book sounds really good. I'd like to have that on my shelf because I think that's really important. Not even about the plant powered part of it. I feel like you said it earlier, we used to be taught general knowledge about what we need to eat food wise, like in
Mm,
schools. I remember when I was younger, I had cooking class and archery class. I know that's sidebar, but it's like school doesn't teach these things anymore. These like
right.
normal things that we should learn and should understand.
Yeah.
Um, it's like I can't believe it. We should learn how to cook because everyone should know how to cook because eating is essential to life. You need to eat every single day. You need to drink water every day. That's just it's just like breathing oxygen. You don't have to teach how to breathe, but you need to learn how to eat because not a lot of people know how to eat. So eating right is absolutely essential. So,
Yeah,
um,
and you're right because we don't know how to cook, and we're into our third generation of people who didn't learn how to cook because you learned it either from your parent or at school, and
yep,
now it was dropped from school curriculum. And this whole idea that your mother would, or your father, or your family member, grandparent would teach you the traditions of that, of your family, your culture, all these things, and hand them down, and we're losing that connection, which is very sad.
yep,
And one of the most important things you could do for your health is to cook more, because if you cook, I mean, chances are you will always make it healthier than you can get at takeout
absolutely.
or like in a package. So just doing, and it doesn't have to be fancy. I mean, a lot of my recipes and my cooking, I can get on the table in 30 minutes. So I
Nice.
would say by the time you call takeout and go pick it up, you could have dinner on the table.
Yeah,
So,
that's a good
and
point.
save money. Yeah.
Yep, everything. And that's
Mhm.
not and to all those people that get upset, that goes for you too. Like you don't have to be vegan to cook your own meal,
Mhm.
to spend 30 minutes, 40 minutes of your day. I mean, sometimes there's certain ways you can do it where, you can make a roast or something and set it and forget it kind of thing in a slow cooker, chili, which can be vegan also, but it's about making your own food, not doing processed food at all. Like if you cut processed food out of it, instantly you're taking a step towards being healthier. You're
Exactly.
getting more veggies into your diet. You're getting more of the stuff that we know is good for you into your system, and that's really important. I think that a lot of people they put it out of their mind because it's work. Well, yeah, you got to get up and work in life. That's kind
Mhm.
of what this world's about. If you don't put work in, then you get complacent, you get lazy, and a lot of the society that we live in right now, a lot of people feel entitled to have things done for them, and I think that's a big problem too. We got to learn how to do things for ourselves. And cooking, just the simple act of cooking is honestly one of the base things that we need to bring back. We have to cook again. Make
Exactly.
cooking great again.
I know, I can't agree with you more on that one. And, that's one of my pet peeves is I try to encourage people to cook. This whole idea, the number one reason people say they don't cook now is because of time. But they spend so much time on social media. I forgot what, isn't it
I know.
2 hours a day on average? Like, what if you,
Yeah,
one fourth of that time? One of the things I like to remind people is that in many food cultures, cooking is considered a reverent act because
awesome. Please.
because it's considered an honor to have food, to even have food, to even have ingredients so that your family is healthy, is considered like you should pray and be grateful, or whatever your sense of spirituality is. You should have that sense of gratitude. This
It's
is a
amazing.
cultural tradition in many cultures, and I feel like we have just lost connection. We've lost connection with our food. We don't know how it's grown. We don't appreciate how hard it is to grow food. And we waste 40% of our food we're throwing away. But if we really value our food and really think a little bit about what it took for that farmer to grow that food, it's not easy. Try growing your own vegetables for a while and see how hard it is, and then really think, I'm so grateful that I have something to nourish my body, and to fuel my brain and all these things, feed my family. I
Yep.
think that's one of the things I like to remind people of. And maybe I'm a little bit of an optimist about that. And the other thing is, that in some cultures, cooking is almost meditation. So there's some cultures where you toast your spices and you smell them and you saute the onions and it, for me at the end of the day, when I'm cooking, I look forward to that time because it's like I can just take a little bit of time and just chop. Chopping is very like kind
Yeah,
of soothing for me and stirring and smelling things. And it's just kind of when I slow down and transition for the end of the day.
it's good for the mind.
Hmm.
I think you nailed it though. I think I'm using the term we because
Mm.
I'm an American. I live in this society, and there was a time where I didn't think about how important just having food on my plate is. I even I always talk about it's nice that we have electricity and toilets. The ability to have our waste get taken away. By just a
Mhm.
press of a lever. Then you think you hear that, and it's like a lot of these people don't even realize how amazing it is that we all have food available to us. I mean,
Mm.
even our homeless, even the poorest of Americans are richer than many countries on this planet right now because they
Mhm.
can still get a meal. They can still stand on a street corner and someone will give them money. I mean, you see it, and they're not going hungry. They can still have food, but most of us have food.
Yeah.
We have food on our table. We can eat food,
Right.
and that's amazing. That
Yeah.
alone should be revered, and people should be grateful for that. We're losing the ability to be grateful for what we have, and I think that is the cause of a lot of the issues nowadays. I'm going outside of food. You look at all this stuff. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just that appreciation of some of the small things that are actually quite large. I mean, human needs of food, shelter, survival are very high, but
Yep,
we've just lost track. We don't value it as much as we used to. My parents were both farmers, and every single thing that they ate came from the farm, like everything. They didn't buy anything, or maybe they traded something with the neighbor farm or whatever.
that's
And I
amazing.
think when you really start thinking about valuing that, I always encourage people to try to grow a little bit of your own food. Like even if it's just a pot on your doorstep with a
Something.
tomato plant or some herbs, just try a little bit and get connected with your food system a little bit.
Yep, tomatoes are delicious too. All right,
Yeah.
so I know that we are not going to go all the way till 8. You have a meeting to go to, so we're going to get into some super chats. Before we do, I just want to say thank you very much for joining me today. I know a lot of people out there probably are triggered because it just simply talking about this is triggering, but that's okay. I think it doesn't matter. I think a lot of what we talked about isn't even really about being vegan. It's about eating healthy. It's about
Mhm.
cooking for yourself. About being grateful for what you have. So thank you very much for joining me today.
I'm so happy that I was joining you too. It was fun.
Awesome. All right, so let's here I have a bunch of super chats that have come in. Mark Robershaw, of course, you're always a pleasure to see. I have a bunch of super chats from you. Plant lives matter. Plants have feelings too. Well, everything eats plants on this planet, so
Yeah.
even animals, every animal eats plants from
Yeah.
the base all the way up to the true carnivores because they eat things that eat plants. So it's
Right.
all from the plants, which is actually all from the sun because the plants all eat sun energy. So it's all
Right.
technically light.
The soil, it's all interconnected. Even a lot of people don't realize that the soil is really such an important part of our ecosystem, and that soil has a microbiome, like now we're understanding the human microbiome, like the
Yeah,
gut microbes. Soil has an even more important microbiome, and the way
interesting.
we're growing food is destroying it, our use of pesticides and the way our entire system right now.
Yeah, and
So
just over farming it also, taking the
yeah,
nutrients out.
lack of biodiversity, all of these things that were
Hmm.
part of this beautiful. But when we have healthy soil, it can do lots of things like prevent erosion. It can actually capture carbon, and decrease carbon emissions. There's so many things that our healthy
Wow.
soil can do.
Yep, we got to bring permaculture back.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Mark again says, I eat apples and pear cores and all. Wow. All right.
Oh,
Good boss.
that's good. One of the
Mark,
things I love to recommend is to eating more of the whole plant, because a lot of times we just eat one part of it. Like, if
broccoli. Broccoli, for
yeah,
example.
like just the little flower, no leaves, or like when you eat radishes, you can eat the radish leaves, or when you eat beets, you can eat the beet leaves. And
Hmm.
in many cultures, they eat the whole plant, but we kind of
Makes
just
sense.
somehow have this idea,
What a
that we
beet
only
is.
eat one part of it. So, and always try to eat the peeling. That's a lot of times where the most nutrient is. I mean, some things the peeling's not edible,
Yeah.
but like apples and pears, most of the fiber, most of the phytochemicals, and I didn't even talk about phytochemicals, but phytochemicals are the plant compounds that have the antioxidant and anti-inflammatory things. There are thousands of them, and often they're concentrated in the outer surface. They're what give plants the color sometimes. So when you see
Okay.
color in a plant, that's the phytochemical.
You can't eat mango skin, right? I heard that you shouldn't
I
eat the mango.
I don't believe so. I have to look that one up, but I don't think that part is edible.
Mark again says, would a vegan eat artificial meat?
That's a good
Interesting.
question. I have
Why don't you take it away? Go ahead.
well, I think he's talking about cell cultured lab grown meat, which
Yeah,
is
lab grown meat. Let's go with that. That's what it is.
yeah, which is getting to be more of a concept that's coming to fruition, and
True.
it could be more sustainable, it could be more ethical. And my whole take on veganism is that it's a personal choice, and I like to say there's no vegan police. There shouldn't be a vegan police. It's like I
I
have no way
agree.
of
I
eating.
agree 100%.
Yeah, and I really don't like any judgmental things. Like I can eat the way I
Same.
want. You can eat. It's
Yes.
a personal choice. So
Yes.
if you're a vegan and you think that lab grown meats are an option for you, that's great. For
Awesome.
a lot of vegans would still consider it to be meat. And one thing to keep in mind is that when you have been a vegan for a long time, you don't really even like the taste of meat anymore. You find it distasteful. So it's
Right.
a very individual thing. But
Cool.
I think that it is an interesting concept when we look at sustainability. I
Yeah, I
think we're going
agree.
to learn a lot. I don't know how well it's going to be embraced in America, but
Yeah,
it'll be
good point.
interesting to see what happens. I actually wrote a whole article about that if somebody wants to look it up.
Is that
Where
on your website?
yeah, if I believe it's
It's in
self
the description below, actually. If you can check out her information, you can click on her website. It's
yeah.
just below, right there.
I have
Uh,
a whole in-depth that explains how it's produced. So if you want to learn more about it, you'll find it's a blog on my site. Just
Excellent.
search for it.
Mark again is human meat vegan. That is disgusting. Moving on. No, of course not. Jeez, Mark. Gosh. All right. Again, he says, being alive causes diseases, bro. It's facts, son. Wrecked. Great. You got me, Mark. You got me. Chet Chisholm. Hey, what's good? Says best vegan cookbooks are the Thug Kitchen ones. Eat like you give an F. Fast as F and party grub for social mother effers. Pineapple tacos. And then they're really good. Okay, sign. I actually know the Thug Kitchen one. I think I have one in my stuff back. It's on the other side of the country right now, but I'll be getting them soon.
They are
Mark Ray,
delicious recipes. I agree with you.
have
I
you
don't know
have you
how
tried them?
healthy they are. I've tried a few of them. They're super healthy. I think I could be wrong, but I really think what they're going for is really trying to show like how you could switch to carnivore and still like be satisfied, right? I think that's
Yeah, yeah,
the whole concept, which is really important because a lot of people worry about that. They think, oh, I'm gonna be
I agree.
hungry all the time, or it's not gonna taste
I don't feel full.
yeah.
Okay, okay. Eat a little bit more. um, yeah, and the thing with cookbooks is you gotta cook. You
Yes.
still gotta cook it. Mark Aurelius says, "Sorry, the carnivore diet is the diet of choice of the gods." H no to the veganism. Plants are my food's food. I don't appreciate y'all's eating it. Well, I don't really care what you eat. So the fact that you don't appreciate what I eat means that you are judging and you're also taking offense when you shouldn't, because I'm not trying to force you to eat any differently. I'm just talking about what veganism is. All right. So you check yourself, Mark. Mark Aurelius, because here's Mark Robershaw again says, capsicum can go F itself into the sun. Okay. Jeez, Mark. All right. Mark again says photosynthesis is the only true vegan diet. Um, so is that just like going and sunbathing and eating? We don't have photosynthesis in our skin, although there is a study that they're actually thinking they've unlocked artificial photosynthesis, which is pretty incredible if they actually have done that. So
I
it's
don't know about that. I'll have to
yeah.
look it up.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Liam Baker says, sent the gang my novel. It's called Stay Tuned. I think you'll dig it. Oh, right on. Well, I don't have anything to do with that gang. So
Mm.
maybe hopefully they're not going to show me. Anyway, Ken 1990 says, food in the USA is all pumped with pesticides and hormones coming from the Caribbean. I was shocked how different the fruit tastes. Everything is different here. I mean, I lived in Europe for probably 2 to 3 years of my life, and all the fruit is amazing there. The potatoes, the
Yeah.
carrots, man, the carrots in France. I can't explain how amazing they are. Wow. And
All I
it's
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
All I have to say is try going to a farmer's market and you'll, I mean, I agree with you, because of the way we produce crops in America. It's large farms, with all these inputs and that one variety,
Yeah,
So, but when you go to a farmer's market, you'll taste produce like you've never had it before. Like where it's
I got
grown
to do it.
by small farmers who, use heirloom crops. They're biodiverse systems, no pesticides. I mean, it's a game changer for
And
eating.
with good soil too, I'm sure.
Yeah. So
Right.
it makes a huge difference. And eating seasonally because our food system is so global that
True.
you're eating like this is a
Same
sad
stuff.
you can be in summer season with tomatoes all around you, and the tomatoes are coming from Mexico, and they were picked 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So that tomato will never taste as good as the tomato that was grown, a few miles away and harvested when it was ripe. So
Yeah.
that's the problem with our food system.
True that. Mark again says, too much iron helped Magneto escape. All right. But good X-Men joke there. Mark again says, no matter what you eat, this is a risk. There is a risk for anything. That's a very good point, Mark. I mean, and as I kind of talked about earlier, if you don't exercise, if you eat a lot of processed candy and drink a lot of soda, which is also vegan, I mean, you're still unhealthy. If you're not exercising, getting up and moving around, there's a lot that goes into being a human being other than what you eat, so, but a lot of it has to do with what you eat. So,
Yeah, and I mean, you could say that, but also we know, very confidently in the nutrition world that there is a diet, a way of eating that will, help you have a much higher risk of living longer and disease free.
yeah.
So, that is, a plant-based diet, and that's pretty much universally agreed on within health organizations. So,
Tom Bowersock says, I'm a believer that red meat is healthier than vegetarian or vegan, but have a super chat because you both are awesome. Well, thank you, Tom. And that's fine. We didn't even actually talk about this. Everyone's different. Everybody's different. Everyone, there's some people that are allergic to certain things, certain foods. They can't eat certain things. If you are in ketosis or trying to go keto, it's probably awfully hard to be vegan because there's not a lot of options left. Being gluten free, that cuts out a lot of stuff. I mean, everyone's different. So, it is, but cooking for yourself, maybe hunting for yourself instead of going to have your meat from a factory farm, is going to be significantly healthier because that it's from the land instead of pumped with hormones and steroids or whatever, you don't know. That's really the thing. So, if I had to, I would hunt myself. I have hunted before in the past. Now I don't have to, because I live in this wonderful place that we call society. So, look, there's no judgments here. A lot of people were getting upset earlier in chat, and it's probably because they feel judged because we're just talking about the way we are, and it's like, look, we're not judging you. We're not judging anyone. All right, humans have lived for hundreds and thousands of years by eating meat. it has been something that's been there, so it's not that there's no judgment. So thank you for saying that, Tom. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Mark Robershaw says vegan farming kills millions of animals every year. Uh, Commercial farming, sure. When you're
Mm.
talking about um, big, huge operations where there might be animals running through the fields, where these huge machines are rolling through. I know what you're talking about, Mark, but we're talking about sustainable farming, which is local, trading with your neighbors, growing your own food. How does that kill animals? That doesn't. That's not.
Yeah, I'm not
That's
sure
not what
what
we're talking about.
that reference is about either. Yeah.
I think I just nailed it, because I've had friends that have talked to me about that, about how, oh, deer get caught up in,
Oh,
most wheat isn't even vegan anymore because the big, huge, massive wheat fields will have, animals that get caught up in the machines as they're pulling
I
the wheat through,
see.
and it's like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Um, Grow your own food, maybe that's what I want to do. Ken
Mhm.
1990 says we're evolved to be omnivores. Meat is not the problem. It's all the hormones being pumped into the meat and pesticides in the plants. Correct. And I actually read an article about being people who are gluten free, that need to be gluten free. There's a lot of talk about how they're finding out that it could be the pesticides in the wheat being used, and the type of wheat that we're using, the one that is was chosen as like the wheat to grow in mass quantities, is
Mm.
one that's hard for the human body to actually digest. So people that have a harder time digesting it. Now, this is just an article I read that this is something they're finding in some studies. It's not proven yet, so don't take that for a fact. But it is interesting. It is those pesticides and hormones. It's not good for us.
Yeah, there is the modern wheat that's been farmed is a very it's higher in gluten.
Mm,
So that's interesting. But one of the prevailing theories now about all of this gluten sensitivity is our gut microbiome, which is where our immune system starts. Is
mm.
Americans' gut microbiome is pathetic. It's just pathetic because of our diets and our
Yep.
lifestyles are super clean. Like now, of course, in COVID, who knows what's going on with our guts,
Oh
but
man, who knows, right?
everybody's
Jeez.
doing sanitizer all the time.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's a lot of interesting stuff, but it is, we definitely have a different agricultural system, and we are seeing the impacts of things like these inputs like fertilizers and pesticides for sure.
Right on. And then here we have a few chats from Mark Robershaw. I'll eat anything at least once except capsicum. What is that? What is capsicum?
That is the compound that's in peppers, spicy peppers.
Ah, so that's the hot stuff.
I don't know if that's what I don't know if I actually wanted to point out that I love what you said earlier about we're all so different. So what works for me doesn't always work for you, and we have our
Yep.
individual tolerances. Like some people are allergic to strawberries, and I love strawberries.
Yep.
So we also have to listen to our bodies and understand ourselves and apply that that kind of filter through what makes us feel good. So I
Yep.
don't know if he has some people could be allergic to some of these things in the pepper family.
Mark Robertshaw, you are a funny guy. He goes, "Oh man, cocaine is vegan, right?" I mean, it comes from a plant. Uh, I guess it is. I don't know. I don't know what chemicals. I don't. Is it chemically processed? Honestly, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Mark again says wrong. We need to evolve to eat the sun. It might be kind of hot.
Oh, so that's
Interesting.
what it's about. Hmm. I was thinking of capsicum and peppers. Hmm.
Maybe. I don't know. Who knows? And he says wrong again. Insect farming is the most efficient. So, well, obviously, these are previously pertaining to what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. Mhm.
No, that's fine. And then he says again, less people, less need for food, less problems. I don't really like where you're going with that, Mark. So I'm going to move on. Thomas Garrett, thank you for becoming a member. Oh, the UFO is. Can you even see the UFO? It is not even on the screen right now. But I was just making the light go bing, 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 bing for you. Thank you very much for becoming a member. Let's see. Tam Tom says, not vegan, just here to support the show. Thank you very much, Tam Tom. I appreciate that very much. I just had a super chat jump. Please bear with me as I scroll back up to where we were at. My goodness. Thank you for all these super chats, everybody. Mark Robichaud again says, I would summon and eat demons. Is that vegan? I may probably, because it sounds like they would be imaginary and would just be air. Right. Robert Weil says, I'm not triggered when you talk about this stuff. Just push back on her when she doesn't admit the damage clearing land for crops. It damages the land. I sorry, Robert. Actually, the lands that are being cleared for crops are to grow food for animals.
Absolutely right.
That's what's happening. We don't need to, if we just cut back on how many animals that we feed with, we can grow food for ourselves instead. Right. A lot of that land. All right, now a lot of people will bring up palm oil. Now I know that's an issue too, because that they are clearing land for palm oil, because palm oil is used in a lot. So I'm not saying that we can branch off into many different conversations. Okay, so I was really trying to stay focused on the nutritional side of things, So palm oil is an issue in the Pacific Southwest. They're doing this quite heavily, but a lot of land clearing is to feed animals. All right, there's no debating that.
There's research documenting, I forgot the percentage of deforestation that's occurring directly related to animal agriculture. I could always look that up for you. It's really very high, but
that's okay.
Palm oil, you don't have to have palm oil. That is an ingredient in processed foods. Like, you don't need palm oil in the kitchen. If you don't eat chips and all these snack foods, then you wouldn't even be. But palm oil is an issue for sure. I mean,
absolutely.
There's a lot going on to try to, promote sustainable palm oil production right now. It's a big issue. So you're right on that.
Yep. All right. So a pierogi platter says, can we get a true carnivore dietitian on the show for transparency on some of this information? Absolutely. For sure. I would love to. I'm not trying to seem biased, although I am vegan myself, and I happen to agree with her on many of pretty much everything that we've talked about. So it's not that I'm trying to, force some sort of bias out into the world. If you feel like honestly, if there is a carnivore dietitian out there that would like to come on my show, hit me up, adamcastirl@gmail.com. No joke. I would love to have someone come on and explain the other side of it. Maybe I could have Sharon come back and we can all have a conversation about it. That would be, I don't know if you would like to come on again. Maybe that would be fun, or I don't know if fun would be the right word, but I mean, I would like that. I always want to see the other side of things. I want to know all the information I can. As I said at the beginning of the episode, everyone's ignorant until they do their research to not be ignorant anymore.
Yeah, and if anybody wants any references of any of the things that I talked about, I'd be happy to provide them. If you want to look them up yourself, I'm all about transparency when it comes to all that.
Well, your website has a lot of information on it, so check out her website. It's in the description below. You can check it out. I know we don't have too much time left, so I'm going to try to get through some of these super chats. Socialism is for Fig says, this is funny. You guys really think if humans stop eating meat, the world would be better? That is not how the food chain works. I am a hunter, and animal populations grow and grow. If you do not eat meat, the meat will eat you. See, this is funny. And we don't have too much time left, but we are already disrupting everything. We're changing the planet anyway. We're doing it. The planet has been forever changed. So this whole, I'm not saying that the world's going to be better only specifically if humans stop eating meat. No way. There's always going to be greed, that people will always money, trying power. There's always these things that have nothing to do with what we eat food wise. The complex life that we live there's so many different facets. We can't just pin one. This is the answer. If we just do this, that's it. No, there's thousands of things that need to happen. We are complex animals, our brains, and everyone's different, as we talked about. So everyone's different, and we have this crazy complex engine called society that we live in. There's no one answer. I can't. We're just having a conversation about food and nutrition, what the body is, and sustainability, and moving forward in life. You know, it's just information that there needs to be conversations being had about this stuff because this is important. Period. That's it.
Yeah, and I also want to point out that 99% of our meat comes from factory farms. So we're really not eating wild foods. I am an
Right.
advocate. I would like to see the meat that we consume in America be more sustainable, more wild
Yeah.
meat, like more grass-fed, but sadly, 99%
Yep.
is factory farms. So,
Yeah.
and
Learn
80%
how to hunt.
of our oceans are endangered.
Oh,
So
the ocean's a whole nother conversation too, because we are way overfishing them.
to figure out how are we going to balance our ecosystems, with our and we're adding 2 billion people to our population in the next 30 years. So how are we going to
Exactly.
feed the planet, you know,
Yep.
and not ruin it,
Exactly.
That's
Very important conversation. Yeah, get a gun. Learn how to shoot. Go hunt your own meat. You said you're a hunter. I respect that.
yeah.
That's you're more you could probably cook yourself too. Because if you're hunting, that means you're harvesting the meat yourself. That means you're cutting down the meat to cook yourself. You're not having someone cook it for you. You do it all yourself. That's what we need more of. All
Right.
right, moving on. I know you don't have too much time left. Richard M says, "You're a good man, Adam." Thank you very much, Richard. Appreciate that. Mark Robertshaw says, "Big sugar is more powerful than big oil." That doesn't surprise me. JT, far from being vegan, but great informative show, Adam. Keep up with booking interesting guests like Sharon. I will absolutely try that. And thank you again, Sharon, for joining me. It's been enlightening for sure. Mark Robertshaw sent a few super chats here. Says it's not taste bugs, it's the microbiome of the gut. Ah, okay. Weaning yourself off sugar, I believe that was about. Maple syrup and pancakes are boss. Fight me. I'm not going to because I love that combination. Brandon Thompson says, "What are your thoughts on documentaries like The Game Changers, which are pretty well propaganda with some false information?" I mean, there may be a couple things that are false, but a lot of it is true. Did you watch The Game Changers? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I actually wrote a review on it. I think I will be right there to admit that a lot of the documentaries have not been very science based and biased. I mean, I have written some negative reviews on some of the plant based documentaries, but I mean, they always have to straddle the line between entertainment, But I mean, I do think that there are tons of athletes that are doing very well on plant-based diets. That they got right, and it's very inspirational. But when you look at science, anecdotal science isn't always like the gold standard. Like saying somebody's story is not like the gold standard. But it is very inspirational, and I do believe I have worked with many athletes that do better on plant-based diets. So, yeah.
All right. Mark Robertshaw says, "When I cook, I always try to add more veggies." Smart. That's great.
Good for you. I love that.
Leonardo says, "Y'all spitting facts tonight. Delightful guest as well. Thank you." And shout out to Sharon. Let's see. Kyle Gardner says, "Please look into getting Dr. Lane Norton, PhD in nutritional sciences on, please. It would be great perspective on the topics from today. Thanks." I would love to. I always enjoy hearing experts talk about things that I would like to know more about. Hands down, it's my favorite thing to do with the show that I have. Kick Mart says, "Plants eat dead things, not just shining light." That's true. That's true. And mushrooms too, which is actually not plants. So another conversation, but interesting. The man behind the screen says, "It's all just space dust anyway." Good point. Lucas says, "I'm a hunter. I butcher my own meat, and I have a relationship to my food in the same way that a gardener would." Just thought to throw that out there. And respect to you, Lucas, because that's what we need more of. People that understand there is a relationship with any food you eat. Really important. And as Sharon pointed out, we've lost that. We got to bring that back. Superman, if he wasn't scared of green rocks, what's good? Says, excuse me if I have a fear of veggies from seeing my Veggie Tales one too many times. This was an educational. Smash that like button and spin that UFO. I will spin it after you. I promise. It actually fell off, so I have to fix the UFO. I know, sacrilege, but it's okay. I'll spin it for you, Superman. Don't worry. Jacob Clark became a member. Bing, 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 bing. I flashed the light for you. Don't worry. Mark Robertshaw says most Americans can't even boil water. That's pretty sad if that's the truth. Darren says it doesn't matter what your diet is as long as you all serve the God Emperor of mankind, which is yourself. Everyone is their own God. I don't know if that's true, but Chioma says mango skin is edible. Oh, I know. I'm Nigerian. Unless there's some non-African skin inedible mango variety I'm unaware of. That's good to know. I've always just thought that mango skin was inedible, but thanks for letting me know. I'll try it next time. Chet Chisholm says it Little Shop of Horrors taught me anything. It's that Steve Martin is a terrible dentist, and we need to eat the plants before they take over the world. All right, good to know. That's funny. All right, let's see. Oh, I just got another super chat jump. Thank you, everybody. Hold on. Here we go. Ribs Exposed says you should get Michaela Peterson on your show, Adam. A vegan and Michaela, a carnivore, having a conversation about their diet choices could be interesting. Well, that would be an honor to have Michaela on my show. Michaela, if you happen to be watching, you're more than welcome to come and talk about being a carnivore. That's fine. Robert Wiles says, I hope you don't think I was mad at you with my first chat. It's just that I don't like being called. I'm acting like something that I'm not. Have a blessed night. Thank you, Robert. No, of course I'm not. I would never assume that. I take criticism, I with a grain of salt. I of course, and you super chat quite often, so of course I appreciate your opinion. So no, don't worry at all. I will always take care of everything. Kikia again says, eat your meat, eggs, and veggies from the local farms. Makes a huge difference. Support local on every business. Lucas says, I was in Nepal with someone with celiac and they had wheat without any reaction. Interesting. Not surprising, honestly. Ax Maximus says, hey, Adam, I have Crohn's disease and I'm not able to have fruit or veggies and dairy. What should I do? Well, I have no idea. That's unfortunately, I'm not the expert. Sharon, do you have any ideas there?
Yeah, that is a very complicated thing that I would recommend making an appointment with a dietitian. I've written. You can read some of the things I've written about that. There are ways you can eat more fruits and vegetables when you have, a condition like that. But it takes, we each have individual tolerances. So I would recommend an appointment for that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Chet again says one of the side effects of taking antibiotics is that it affects your gut bacteria, kills some of it off, making digestion harder until it repopulates. That's a good point. It's a good point. The Water Warrior says, I'm on a 65-day juice fast, and I'm getting a feeling of soreness and burning in my upper chest area. Any advice? 65 days. I mean, I don't know much about fasting. I think
yeah, I would think
I think she said it.
Too long.
Talk to a dietitian.
Yeah, you're a healthcare professional.
Yeah. Mark Robershaw says, capture CO2 and use it for hydroponics. Okay. Sarah says, sorry for the shade you guys are being thrown. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. It's a complicated thing and good to chat about. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. Yeah. Kikia again says, oh no, they feed cows corn, wheat because they grow too much to try to get enough to feed humans. Cows eat the stuff that isn't suitable to feed humans. Yes, but it's not always suitable for cows either. And that's what I was referring to earlier. Chet Chisholm says, Michaela Peterson is a carnivore. Maybe her. Oh, I mean, someone just suggested earlier. It would be nice to have her on. That would be fantastic. Angela says, started my own garden 2 years ago. Use flowers and herbs to keep the undesirable bugs away. Also compost for good soil. Awesome. I love that. Proud of you. The man behind the screen says the world won't be made better just based on what we eat food-wise, as opposed to other things we eat. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I mean, again, we have to think about politics and, just people not being cool to one another. And there's so much outside of just simply eating food that has to do with making the world a better place. Adam Johnson says, we need the protein bars they were eating in the Snowpiercer movie. Nom, nom, nom. It was made from, did you see that? It was, I
Yes.
think, cockroaches. Yeah. Jordan Levington says, host a nuanced conversation between Sharon and Michaela Peterson, the Lion Diet girl. I mean, everyone seems to think Michaela should be on my show. So, Michaela, I'm going to try to reach out to you and have you on. That would be a pleasure. And of course, I have been following your father for a long time. If you do happen to watch my show, and I'm glad he's doing better. And he's an incredible man. The man behind the screen says, since we moved into our house, my wife and I used half of our yardscape to grow some of our food. Doesn't work out well. It doesn't always work out, but well worth it when it does. I absolutely agree with you. And that is our super chats. Sharon, I know you have to go. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. And I really do appreciate your expertise.
It was
Thank
great.
you.
I love the conversation. So glad
Yeah.
everybody had these great comments too.
Yeah. And I'll be hitting you up because it feels like I sense a really good something, in the future with an expert that doesn't believe veganism is the way, maybe there. And
Right.
I think that's a good conversation that we need to have because I like that. We can disagree and have conversations and it's okay. That's fine. We don't have to get angry about it. So
Exactly. Let's have a conversation and let people make up their own minds. That's what it's all about.
yeah. So why don't you tell everyone, what you're doing, how to follow you, and everything? I'll just to send us off before we end the show.
So you can check out my site at sharonpalmer.com. I know you see my name there, Sharon Palmer, and I have a blog that you can sign up for with my recipes. I do all of my own recipes come from my kitchen, and you can also follow me at Sharon Palmer RD, and on Instagram and Twitter, and then on Facebook, and keep engaged with what's going on in the nutrition world. And
Right
also,
on.
you can get my books at my site too.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for joining in tonight. I will be back tomorrow at 6:30. Of course, I go live on my Twitch channel tonight at around 10 p.m. So I will see you there if you join me there. If not, I will see you tomorrow at 6:30 on Adamcast IRL. I will have Anomaly. He's joining me. He's another YouTuber. I don't know if you know him, but either way, thank you very much for joining me, Sharon. And I will see everyone later. Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a wonderful night.